Molly to the rescue. Molly and Betty were firm friends. They had lived next door to each other since they were babies and had shared games and lessons ever since they could remember. Whenever Betty was in trouble, she told Molly about it, and Molly, for her part, kept no secrets from Betty. The girls at school said they did not believe Molly and Betty would ever quarrel, but they were wrong. For one sad day, the little girls had a serious disagreement, which might have ended unhappily. No one could say exactly how the quarrel started. It might have been the wet morning, or perhaps it was the fact that they were both very late starting for school. But in hurrying along the wet, muddy lane, Molly accidentally pushed Betty, and her home lesson book fell into a pool of water. Molly was very sorry and said so, but Betty was very cross indeed and said that Molly was always careless and rough. That hurt Molly's feelings very much. "I think you're perfectly horrid to say such a thing, Betty," she fired hotly. "You know I didn't do it on purpose, and in any case, you shouldn't have been carrying it loose in your hand." Now, one thing which made Betty feel very angry at all times was to be told what she ought or ought not to have done. And she scolded and stormed at Molly so much during the next few seconds that Molly said many hard things in her turn, and two cross-tempered little people took their places in school 5 minutes after the bell had stopped ringing. Each received an order mark for being late, and after that, nothing seemed to go right. Molly lost her place in geography class, and Betty's arithmetic was so badly done that she had to stay in after the others had gone to finish her sums. In the ordinary way, Molly would have waited to walk home with Betty, but today she walked home by herself. "I won't wait," she remarked to herself, "and I'm never going to speak to Betty again." Molly's mother thought her little girl rather quiet, but was too busy to inquire the cause, as baby John had been rather fretful and wanted a great deal of attention. It was Wednesday and a half holiday, at which time the school swimming club, of which Molly and Betty were members, met under the direction of Miss Kenwright, the sports mistress. There were no swimming baths near the school, and in order that the school should not be backward in the matter of swimming, a portion of the river was roped off and a row of dressing boxes had been built on the bank. Molly was a good swimmer, and Miss Kenwright had allowed her to join the life-saving class, which was a great honour as it meant longer time in the water and extra swimming practice with the older girls. Betty, on the other hand, could just manage to keep afloat for a short time, but was rather afraid of the water. But Molly very kindly, for it meant less time for her own practice, helped Betty each week. This Wednesday, of course, Molly swam as far out as was allowed and left Betty in the shallow water to try by herself. "Come along, Molly," called out Nora Carney, one of the oldest girls in the school. "We're practicing a squadron race, and Miss Kenwright says you may swim in Nita Vaughan's place, as she could not come this afternoon." Molly was delighted, for a junior was never allowed in senior squadron practice as a rule, and she resolved to do her very best. Betty, having heard what was said, and yet not wishing Molly to think that she was interested in any way, made her way to the diving board at the end of the swimming enclosure. To do this, she had to cling to the rope which marked the enclosure with both hands and work her way hand over hand to the deep end. The rope was fastened to stakes driven into the bed of the river, and between one stake and the next, it was possible for anyone to slip under the rope and be carried out. And for that reason, any girl found swimming on the outside of the ropes was forbidden to attend swimming practice for a whole term. This rule, strict as it may seem, was a very wise one, for the current in the river beyond the enclosure was treacherous, and it might send any bathers swirling into midstream before they could prevent themselves. Betty remained at the deep end during the race, clinging to the rope and watching Molly, who had made a splendid start and was swimming steadily. Suddenly, Gladys Enderby, who was much older than Molly, shot ahead, and Betty, who had forgotten the quarrel for the moment, called out, "Molly, Molly, come along, you'll win, Moll." Before she could finish, her hand slipped from the rope, her body slid out backwards, and Betty was through the enclosure and away towards the current. Miss Kenwright saw what had happened and with swift strokes was making her way to Betty when a small figure swept past her in a frantic effort to reach her friend. Another instant, and Molly had succeeded in catching Betty and gripping her firmly, made for the rope. Miss Kenwright and several of the big girls came to the rescue then, but it was Molly who reached me first, as Betty said when she told the story at home. Molly was the heroine of the hour, and Betty hugged her tightly, all dripping as she was, saying, "Oh, Molly, no more quarrels as long as we live," to which Molly smilingly agreed. The end.